my opinion, for a lot of bosses have probably changed. I don't. I see. As for right now, I've never liked Slave Knight Gale because the beginning of the fight I just found really boring. Because I mean,
Yeah.
the last part of his fight is incredible. I mean, the best that we've seen in boss fights in general. But his first phase, I just find an absolute bore to go through. It's kind of how I feel with Melania because I feel like her first phase is extremely
Yeah.
boring, and then you got this incredible second phase that I would much rather see and experience. But
So it's not even that it's boring because the first phases are like really good and engaging, but they're too long, right?
yeah,
Like you rinse and repeat the same moves over and over because of how massive the health pool is. And by the time you get through it, you have to learn a whole new phase, right? And it's like you got to get through that first phase every time you want to fight the second phase. So if you're
yeah,
doing it as a challenge run, it just makes it tedious,
hmm,
right? It's so tedious. Like they do not need that much health in phase one. They don't
right.
need that much health in general in some cases.
Well,
It's
look,
like Gale, I love phase one. I love doing that fight with no HUD, no lock on phase one, and just seeing the spectacle of it and the movement. It's like a dance of blades, right? But it's too long.
yeah,
Like by the time you get to phase two, you're like, oh my God, that was like it's boring to watch because it's fun at first, and then you're watching the same thing for like 2, 3 minutes, and then you finally get to the actual fight, and then it starts to get good again. And then even then, it's like phase two for a while, and you're doing that whole song and dance, and then finally you get phase three where the real stuff kicks in. And
one,
it takes too long, even with like Frida and everything. Like that second phase is too long.
yeah, you're definitely right about that. The second phase of Sister Freed, yeah, it does drag.
Yeah.
And another weird thing with the boss fight, Fire Giant. I really love the Fire Giant. I know you feel differently about him, but
I
um,
don't hate him.
every second with the Fire Giant, I absolutely love. I love fighting him every time, just doing a no damage run. I think I could just do that every playthrough because it's just I enjoyed nearly every aspect, and it's like the whole fight feels like an adventure to me within itself. However,
Hmm.
when I get footage for him, it's usually about 5 minutes long, and it's pretty much the only time where I'm like, you know what, I don't want to watch myself do this. I rather experience it. So whenever I upload it, it's very rare that I'll just rewatch it because it's more boring watching, and it's really fun playing, but it's really boring watching myself do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's not the same with like Commander Nile. I love watching every single thing I do in Commander Nile because everything I do is very deliberate and it's it's also not 5 minutes long. I see the biggest problem I have with the Fire Giant is just the last little bit of the Fire Giant drags too much. He just gets extremely tanky. Um, I feel like there's definitely a balancing issue in terms of phases. I feel like his first phase should
Yeah.
be longer, second phase should be longer than his third. Everything else should have like the same length in terms of health, and for some reason it just feels it's so off. I don't know why they decided to do that because as crazy as his third phase is, I think it definitely needs to be significantly shorter because you'll see the same motions several times,
Yep.
and he loves spamming the roll. He loves spamming. I don't know if you watched my entire recent upload of the Fire Giant, but he spams that fireball cast so many times.
Oh yeah. It's obnoxious. I'll have to watch your most recent one. I don't know if I've seen it. I probably thought it was the same one because when you said you uploaded three, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh no, I uploaded
No,
three.
that was the Commander Neil,
Yeah,
not
Commander
Fire Giant. I did
Neil.
watch your Fire Giant kill.
Yeah, you were there live, remember?
Yeah, yeah,
But
that was good.
yeah, here.
So Neil, I think there's a solution for Neil to make him better. That's not quite what people would expect because I really like the intro of that fight. I like going in there, taking out the one, and then taking out the other,
Mm-hmm.
and then fighting him, right? But I actually like the premise behind the other Commander Neil that you fight in Caelid more,
Oh really?
where he doesn't just summon once, he summons twice, right? Or was it 3 times? I think it's twice. But I would like him to summon more, right? It's like a primary mechanic of his. Have him get to like half health or something, give him less health, but have him get to half and then go back into like summoning mode. Summon some more interesting enemies that suit each other well, have him go more passive, and just have another thing to break up the fight and make it more interesting so you're not just fighting the same thing for a majority of his fight where he doesn't have that many moves.
I feel like Renala to make her better. I mean, I don't know why they decide to make her aggressive while the spirit summons are going after you. Because you're having to focus on so much, and while you're trying to deal with the spirit summons, I mean, really the only proper solution is just they'll keep running away until they disappear. And if you try to fight them, then she'll just shoot you with something off screen. And I was thinking about the other day about maybe a solution, but it probably wouldn't be very popular. Is that whenever she summons a spirit summon, an arena is also summoned as well, and she'll disappear, and then you get to fight the boss. Just a small temporary fight, and you can either wait it out or you can just fight the boss and make go away a lot faster. And then whenever you defeat the boss, she'll have like a little slight stagger moment, something like that. I think will be a lot more interesting. And
Yeah.
now that I
Chance to hurt her after.
do I now.
A chance to hurt her after you win the fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have to increase her health pool, I mean, go ahead and do that just so you can have a more interesting fight. And also, once you get through the first phase, that whole gimmick, get rid of
Yeah.
it so that we can jump right into the main fight. Because we don't. Why in the world do we have to do that every single time? Because it's always the same thing, except
So
there are different locations to where you have to hit the children or whatever.
I actually phase one is really interesting on like level one new game 7 no hit. If you're not using like meta high damage stuff.
Uh huh.
If you have to like two phaser at least, it's pretty interesting honestly. Like there's a lot of dynamics to that fight, and I really do enjoy phase one. Phase two, okay. Here's the problems with phase two. First off, it's the fact that she can back to back to back summon. Second, it's the way her AoE gives her hyper armor for summoning and how much range it has. It becomes a situation where it takes away a lot of your ability to punish or do anything because she can just pull that out of her pocket, right? And so you were saying, okay, she can attack during the summons, but there's actually like somewhat solid mechanics behind it. So when she summons the Bloodhound Knight, she does not attack, unless you go after her, or if you attack the Bloodhound Knight. And here's why, right? So the Bloodhound Knight, you think, okay, well, I'm just gonna run away because it's my best shot, but actually, it's not. It actually takes a really long time if you run away, and he can outrun you and he can
Yeah.
outstep you, so that he can actually hit you while you're sprinting. You cannot just sprint away from him and get away. He will outrun you. But if you hit him once, literally once, and then you just get away from him, he'll despawn. That's all it takes, one hit.
Oh, really? Just
And
one?
that just one. You just smack him once, and then you dodge his attack, and then he just despawns. You go after her and start fighting her.
Okay. I could.
So that's
Huh.
yeah, so that's good. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And the wolves, it's the same kind of deal where they can despawn, but if they don't, they take one or two smacks to kill, right? It's no big deal. And she does get involved there, but they're pretty easy to backpedal and just take a swing at, and they can't do anything to you, right?
Hmm.
They're harmless. So you could say, all right, that's kind of fine. The giant, she does attack during the giant, and I think the giant's pretty bad, but at least the giant's slow and it despawns pretty quick. So that's what it is. The dragon, she doesn't attack you at all. Um, However, if you promote the dragon to like do longer combos and stay for longer, she will. And if you attack her during the dragon, she'll attack back. The best way to get rid of the dragon quickly is to force it to fly up and land on you at the beginning. And then or it breathes fire no matter what first, right? And if you're far away, it'll fly up and drop. And you can use that as an opportunity um, to like get close to her while it's doing the flying attack. Like you put it between you and her so that way you're close enough that you can punish her after. And it works. But if you're too close to the dragon and you try engaging with the dragon or her, it can continue on and do longer combos and stay in the fight longer than it should.
Hmm.
And I think that's pretty good. Like I think that the mechanics around the spirit summons are good in terms of that, but where she falls apart is the fact that she can spam summon them, and it is her primary goal is to summon shit. Like when you get to phase two, you will get summon spammed. It is a fact. Like it's going to happen, and she's not gonna stop. It's very rare that you can get her in a loop where she's not gonna break it up to summon, right?
Hmm.
It's extremely rare. It is a very small percentage of the time that you're gonna get a fight where she's not gonna summon for like a good combo, you know? It's
Gotcha.
always gonna happen, and it's obnoxious. And when she does it, you are then not able to attack her unless it's like the wolves. You can run away from the wolves, you can attack her, or you can hit the Bloodhound Knight and you can run in, but then you're subject to her mechanics, right? So she can turn into the moon and thrust that at you, and you're unable to attack her while she's doing that, and then you have to run away from that, and you have to hope that you have decent RNG and that she doesn't summon, and it's just a big stalling fight. Renala's terrible. It's
Hmm.
literally one of the worst fights in Elden Ring because she will just stall and stall and stall, summon, cast things that you have to like run around and wait for, and eventually get to her if you even can at all. And there's ways to like really get up in there and punish the shit out of her, but it's
Yeah,
not good, man.
that's why I'm
There's so
finding.
much wrong.
That's why I'm trying to force a lot more entertainment out of Radon because I would much rather go to Radon instead of the
Yeah,
Red Wolf, Radagon, Renala route because
yeah.
I found I've been most recently practicing around with Radon. I'm finding more openings, so I'm finding him a little bit better as a fight because I really didn't really care for him at first. I was like, ah man, this is kind of overhyped, and then
Yeah.
recently as after playing around with him a little bit more, I'm like, you know what, it's actually not that bad. It's still not my favorite, but it's just.
Yeah, I
but
found something cool out about Radahn that's kind of cheap, but I like it. So if you just run away from Radahn, like right off rip, he just loses tracking on you, and he just stops targeting you.
Yeah, someone actually mentioned. I was listening to a video and someone mentioned that. I was like, oh wow! So I tried it the other day, and but I don't know. Does it take longer to do that than just run up to him?
No, so check this out. Not only is it somewhat faster, but it's more consistent, and you get straight into melee phase. So what I would do once I found that out is I turned around 180 degrees from them and sprinted away from them. And there's conveniently placed some weapons in the ground, right? Like you know how you can take cover behind them,
Uh huh.
just far enough away that if you sprint directly to it, you can hide behind it. And then he immediately loses tracking from you, right? And it goes into a melee fight where once you approach him, he'll charge you with his melee, right? To me, that tells me that From Software was preparing for like a no roll type strat, right? Because they do that. Like in the previous games, when you look at the way the fights are calculated and set up, it looks like they intended every single move that they make to be outmaneuverable with just movement,
Hmm.
right? Which is how it should be. And
Yeah.
Radahn does that, right? And you can do that. You break you break that, then you sprint, and you get to just have a melee fight with them. And the actual fight itself is pretty good. 1.0, it was not. There were serious flaws with it 1.0. The orbs will all fire off in a way to where you couldn't avoid them all properly, and they fired off instantly. And he had way more health. Everything about the fight was just miserable. It's a lot better now, but it's almost too easy now, like in terms of him just being kind of squishy and easy to burst down, which was a shame.
Well,
But
why do you think they patched him but not the other bosses?
so Radon and Melania were given the spotlight during all the trailers and stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
those were the bosses. Those were the ones that people were gonna fight that were gonna be epic as shit. Like you saw Radon and Melania fighting, and you're like, I can't wait to fight them, right? And you get to Radon, and he's this goofy ass, no-legged dude riding on top of some crippled horse, right? And it just looks cartoonish, right? It doesn't even, it's kind of cool, but it's also like a joke, right? It just feels like a joke. And it's like, that's the fight, right? And you got Melania, who just, you know, she was the pinnacle of difficulty in the game, right? And because cheat engine's a thing, people found out how to counter all of her stuff right away. So she was never really like you don't want to nerf the biggest fight in the game, right? Because then it takes away the challenge, and they do get that, but they did it anyways to a whole bunch of other parts of the game. And Radon's kind of a victim of that. Same with like a Stallion Trio or any gang fight for that matter. Um, Radon got nerfed and he shouldn't have. It's just that you can access him so early in the game because he's basically like at the same point as Renala, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He's like a second remembrance boss that you would fight. It's either him or Renala. And because he's so much stronger than Renala, they nerfed him down to the difficulty of Renala. And I don't think that was a good move.
Hmm.
Um, I think he should have still been on the level of like Melania, to be honest.
That sucks.
And Melania should have been brought down.
I really think he's got also a health balancing issue, a phase health balancing issue where his last phase is way too short. I think it could
Yep.
have been increased a little bit
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when I feel like I
Go
have
ahead.
to reduce my attack so much at the very end because I feel like he could just because he leaves a lot of openings, including after he lands from the meteor attack.
Yeah.
And by the
Yeah, you
time
can
you
carry
wail on
him
him
around
on
too
that,
fast.
the fight's almost
Yeah.
over with. He's got like maybe two or three hits. I mean, just like I said, I got to reduce my attack damage sometimes just so I can like make it last longer.
Yep. I had to do that for my New Game 7 fight even. It's still I was doing too much damage.
Thank you for listening to this podcast clip. If you want to watch more of the podcast, the full podcast is in the link in the description, along with my guest channel name. And if you would like to guest in a future podcast, please contact me and we shall talk so we can discuss many, many topics, more to come. Other than that, have a glorious day.